guys, what's up? This episode is about connections. I was connected to Amber through someone on IG. Shout out to that person on IG. Thank you so much. And because of that connection, I got another connection, which you will hear next week. But back to Amber. So I was surprised at how much Amber and I have in common in terms of our experiences and our goals. So the difference, though, is that Amber grew up in a small town, Fayetteville, North Carolina. And while I grew up in a metropolitan city, Washington, D.C., we both identified the changes in our surroundings, in our neighborhoods that we live in. And we both decided to do something about it. I created this podcast. She wrote an essay and then ultimately also created a podcast. We both are building a community online to discuss basically our feelings towards gentrification and how we are creating a platform for not only our voices to be heard, but for others as well. Amber is going to the neighborhood and having conversations with the people who live in the neighborhood. I don't know if I'm gonna do that. My first reaction to when I said that to you was to say no. And I need to unpack that. Not right now, but in the future I'll unpack that. In our conversation, a couple of things stood out. I realized how negative I've been towards architects and architecture. And that's probably because it's a product of my environment. Architects always love to encourage others not to become an architect and why you want to be in this profession. And so over the years, that tends to nag at you. So I need to not be as negative. And I think the negativity also comes from pain, also comes from disappointment in how we as architects treat each other and how we are behaving in this profession. Because it's kind of like a self-hate thing, right? Also of that self-hate is that we don't speak up. We play a role in this, and I think that we talk a little bit about that. It's an interesting discussion, to say the least. And it's coming from a perspective of a non-architect. She's more of experiencing the space and seeing it in a point of view through, her education and her background and her own knowledge, as we all do. But, I see it differently, obviously, from her. But yeah, I am grateful for the conversation. I am grateful that she decided to talk to me about this. Information about her and her project is in the show notes, so please check it out. Also, the essay that started it all, I encourage you very much to read it. And I think that's it. Short and sweet. So here you go. So who are you?
Yeah, my name is Amber Delgado, and I am a writer, sometimes filmmaker, sometimes collagist, friend, daughter. Yeah, that's who I am. And I am currently based in North Carolina.
Okay. You're in Fayetteville, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine, she's also from Fayetteville. She's an architect.
Okay.
And she's Cape Verdean.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Are you Cape Verdean? No. Okay.
No.
Yeah, I guess a lot of similar features. So
I think I may know who you're talking about. Does she teach?
She did at one point.
Okay. Huh. That's interesting.
Her name is Devin.
Oh, okay. Oh, never mind. No, I don't think I know each other.
Okay. Besides her, that's the only thing that connects me to Fayetteville. So.
Yeah.
So you grew up there, born and raised?
Yes, born and raised. So I don't know if you know much about it, but it's a military town. So Fort Bragg is here in Fayetteville. It's, I think, one of the largest military bases in the country. And that's, I would say, a bulk of the population is here related to the military in some way. And my dad is retired, but yeah, that's basically how I ended up here. My parents, my dad is Peruvian and my mom is from Alabama. So we've just been here since my sister was born.
How did they meet, out of curiosity?
Yeah, that's what everybody asks. They met, my dad was stationed here and my mom was here for nursing school. And she was working at the mall here, and I don't know, they just kind of ran into each other there. And it
And
was
that's all
just,
she wrote. You mentioned a sister.
yes. Yeah, so basically I have an older sister and a younger brother. We were all born here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You went to college
Yes.
and your major was?
I double majored in film and art history.
Oh, okay. So you always was an artistic person.
Yeah, pretty much. I definitely really got into just art in general when I was in high school. And my senior year, I thought I wanted to go to school for photography, but that didn't really work out. So I kind of got more into filmmaking. And then when I was a film major, I had to take art history classes, and I loved it so much. So I decided to double major.
Did you leave North Carolina at all, or?
For college?
Yeah.
No, I first I went to community college here in Fayetteville and I got my associates, and then I transferred to East Carolina University, which is in Greenville, North Carolina.
Okay.
Finished my undergrad there. Yeah.
What's like your fondest memories of Fayetteville growing up?
Oh, wow.
Besides, as the birds chirp in the background.
Yeah, this is a very like serene space to do this podcast. That's a great question. Fondest memories. I just spent so much time with my grandparents. So they lived here for a while, both on my mom's side and my dad's side. My grandma, my mom's mom, and my dad's mom. Just like going to their houses and going to parks here. I would say those are the biggest ones. And at least as a kid. And then as a teenager, so Fayetteville it's growing now because of gentrification, which I'm sure we'll get into. But when I was in like middle school and high school, there was not much to do at all. Like there's so much more here now than there was like 10, 15 years ago. So I was really bored when I was when I was in high school and middle school. There really was not much to do. Like my friends and I would like go to Target and Barnes and Noble as like activities
to hang out.
Yeah, it's very like it did have that small town feel to it a lot.
Yeah. You graduated from college, and what happened?
Yeah, I graduated from college in 2018 and I applied to a job at the Center for Documentary Studies in Durham, and I got accepted for that position. So I moved to Durham in 2018 and lived there for 2 years. So total of 3 different cities I've lived in North Carolina: Fayetteville, Greenville, and then Durham. Yeah.
So out of those 3, Durham is the most like populous out of the 3, correct?
Yes.
So that's the city. That's
yeah.
Okay. Like Durham, Raleigh, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Trying to remember. I've been down there a couple of times. I'm in Maryland.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, my memory, don't fault me if my geography is a little off.
Yeah. It's usually referred to as Raleigh Durham, like the airport, like Raleigh Durham Airport. So
okay,
yeah.
I had it backwards. I'm sorry.
You're good.
So it pretty much you stayed within the area, and as you grow up, things tend to change. I know for me, born and raised in DC, within the past even 10 years, it's becoming unrecognizable to what I remember it growing up to be. Do you share that same experience? And at what point did you notice the dramatic change?
Yeah, it's so funny. So with all three of those cities that I've lived in, I feel like I've noticed it in each place that I was. And then Durham was like the pinnacle for me, like understanding it, because that's where it's like so visible, more so than the previous two places, previous two cities. Yeah, so I mean, even when I lived in Greenville, North Carolina for undergrad for 2 years as well. And even when I was there, especially because Greenville is so dependent upon the campus, like as the city is so dependent upon the campus for just like income and tourism and stuff like that. I was just so face to face with the changes upon me moving there. And even within the 2 years that I was there, I saw that city change a lot. And then moving to Durham, like I said, it just really made sense to me. Like, oh, okay, this is not just central to any one city, any one place. This is like a global thing that is happening everywhere,
Yeah.
and to varying degrees in different places. But yeah, definitely within the Triangle area of North Carolina, it is unlike, like, to a different level than I've seen any place else in the state.
Besides the physical change,
Mhm.
is the people change also.
Yeah.
So like growing up, were you, especially in like high school, were you like, how big was your school? And in terms of the demographics, like how, in terms of Black people, white people?
Yeah. So my high school was pretty big. I think my graduating class was like 380 people. Yeah. And I would say I think it was predominantly white, but it wasn't drastically predominantly white, if that makes sense. Yeah. And then as in terms of watching Fayetteville change, I would say that those changes, like both demographically and physically within the city where I'm from, didn't really start happening until after I left. So, like I was saying, I graduated high school in 2012. So, I would say maybe around like 2014 was when things started to change here. And Fayetteville is really interesting because back in the 90s, I don't know, a lot of people that are from North Carolina like know the stereotype of Fayetteville, but I don't know if people not from the state know, but it's basically like deemed as like very hood and like dangerous, quote unquote dangerous. And I suppose, like, I don't know, but I don't like those stereotypes of like deeming a place as like inherently dangerous. Like when I would go other places and tell people I was from Fayetteville, they would be like, "Oh wow, like you're from Fayetteville," like as if that's like impressive or something. But it's really, I don't know. It's a misconception, one, I believe, and I also think it's problematic to deem areas as like innately criminal. Like that's just not a thing. And also, the history to it is that like downtown Fayetteville used to have, I would say the 90s and earlier, like from like the 60s to the 90s, downtown Fayetteville was really trying to attract single soldiers. So there was like a lot of strip clubs down there, and I don't know, just a lot of bars. And I guess that was the appeal. It was like single soldiers that are coming into town, like, kind of show them a party. And now I think the shift within the past couple of years has been towards like families of military members that are moving. Let's make this a more family oriented, appealing town for families to want to stay here and settle down here. So with that, when I have been back recently visiting home, I would say just like places I go sometimes, even to certain stores, I get looks as if I don't belong here from, I would say, like predominantly white upper class families that are moving into town. And it's just so wild because it's like, y'all don't get to look at me like I don't belong here when I was here when it was nothing, which is the feeling a lot of, especially Black people, are having towards gentrification. So that's my experience with it here.
So you said something I want to touch upon real quickly. You gave a brief history of Fayetteville and what it once was considered, like you said, hood. Was it because of the demographics? It was more because it was, you had, like you said, single soldiers, prostitution, or like, is that
Yeah.
because it seems like it's more like a class thing than a race thing,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I would say both probably. Like I would say that its reputation was created out of both a class and racial assumption, because there, aside from military families that live here, there is a large Black population here. So I think that's a layer to it as well, both class and race. I don't know this firsthand because I'm 25 years old and I was born in 94, but I met somebody who is older than me who used to live in this area, and he said that there was a lot of like gang activity in the 90s here, and specifically in like North Fayetteville. So I think, yeah, I think it's layered, as to how its reputation.
So moving a little bit forward, when you were in college and you went back home to visit, you mentioned that was the first indication that you saw that change was happening.
Yeah.
So what were the things that you were seeing?
Oh, it was so fast. It's so wild to me. Like, I mean, on a specific road that I drive by often, there was like a trailer park there, and that trailer park got torn down and like built into this whole new shopping center. It is huge. There is like home goods there. There's a DSW shoes there. There's like new restaurants, all like a whole new shopping center where this trailer park used to be. And that got built within such a short amount of time. And I would come home pretty often because it was only a 2-hour drive, and I'm really close to my family. So it was literally like I would come home 1 month, see something being torn down, and then the next time I would come back again, it would be finished. So a lot of retail was built within those past couple of years. And yeah, on top of previous property that was there. I think it's like a common thing here. And also the downtown area was heavily built up, which again is something, and I feel like this is also just a common refrain for gentrifying places across the country. But I mean, so many people that are from here would say like, oh, it used to be scary to go downtown and now it's not, so this is a good thing. And it's like, why was it scary to you? Like, let's unpack that. Yeah.
So I'm coming from two perspectives. One who is experiencing gentrification of where she used to grow up, and the other side is, I designed that shopping center, like I designed the new buildings that you see downtown. And it's kind of like on that side, you're creating something new and you're providing the economy. Certain places like, oh, they're building this. You get excited. Oh, this is great. A DSW. Wow. I don't have to drive 2 hours to get a DSW. I could just, Target's right there, So people in town, people who live in neighborhood don't have to travel as far. What we get into trouble is multifamily homes, is the homes, people who are staying there, I guess. Yeah. That's my indication. Because I remember there are certain streets that were 2-story storefronts. It was a, tool store, and that gets torn down. And now it's Target, it's urban Walmart. At first you get excited because you don't have to travel as far. But now it's like, wait, what happened to those people who own those shops?
Yeah. Yeah.
So were you excited in the beginning? You came home and you were like, DSW, yes.
Yeah, my mom definitely was. Because we did have to go to Raleigh and stuff to go like shopping. And I don't know necessarily if I was excited because it is, I hear you. It is a benefit for people that enjoy those things. But a part of me, this is something I'm interested in exploring more. I'm just really thinking deeply about letting small towns be small and like I don't know, like the integrity or like the feel of a place. Because I think what I felt once I came home from college and saw those changes was this isn't gonna, like, this city is trying to be a next Raleigh Durham, which I understand. Like, that's capitalism. I'm not surprised by that of growth and economic, appeal. I'm not surprised by that. But I guess, and it is similarly, it is a good thing that people that are, teenagers and stuff have places to go, like places to work, to get a job and stuff like that. When I was in high school, there was hardly any place for me to work. I was actually working under the table for this catering company when I was 15 because there weren't many places to get a job here. So, I mean, I think about that too. There's pros and cons, but I think generally I was like, I know that this isn't going to feel the same way once I started seeing all these new things every time I was coming home.
It's kind of tricky too, because when you get into those huge developments, they're usually a corporation that has other malls.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a certain aesthetic.
Yeah.
And especially when they tear down and a place like Fayetteville where there isn't any, I wouldn't say there's no rules, but I'm assuming that that shopping center looks like any other shopping center that you've been to.
Absolutely.
So there's no Fayetteville character to it.
Yeah, that's so true. That's a great point. Yeah, that's absolutely right.
So
Um,
it's kind of like you get lost because, Target, no matter where you go, Target has a brand. So you will see that bullseye no matter where you go.
yeah.
You see the red and you see the bullseye. And
Mm-hmm.
same thing with Walmart. It's a huge warehouse, basically. So at what point did it start getting ridiculous? You're like, wait a minute. What sparked you to say, okay, something has to be done? What's going on?
That's a good question. So I don't think I felt that way until I, like I said, was in Durham, where it just like really hit home for me. Even though I'm not from there, I guess it just clicked what was happening because it's on such a greater scale there as opposed to Fayetteville. I would say maybe I still haven't felt that yet in Fayetteville, thankfully. The changes have surprised me for sure, but I don't think it's been as rapid as a lot of other places, which I'm thankful for. But I'm also getting ready to move again. So who knows, by the next time I come back, I might be singing a different tune. But yeah, so definitely in Durham. I mean, I lived there for 2 years, like I said. And within those 2 years, I mean, on my daily commute to my job, which was a short 10-minute drive, I just really saw. I remember there was a specific time last summer where it actually took me like 30 minutes to get to work on my 10-minute commute because there were like construction detours on every single regular road that I take. So it's so fast there. And I had a friend visit me there in February of this year, and that was her first time ever going to Durham, and she was like, yeah, this city feels strange. Like it just, the vibe of it just feels odd, because it's so, you can just feel how in transition it is. And that was her first time going there. And she said, I've never been a place like this before.
So it's kind of like confused. It doesn't have an identity, you think, or?
Yes. Yeah. I think that it's trying to hold on to an identity, but it's so fleeting, unfortunately. And it's because of how rapid it is. Like I said, I mean, I observed like apartment complexes and houses being built within like 3 months.
So Curated Tolerance, how did that happen?
Yeah, it started out of exactly what I'm just describing in Durham. So when I say that I feel like it's trying to hold on to an identity, that's at its core what I feel Curated Tolerance is about. There was a point where I realized there's an appeal within gentrification to let certain things remain, certain aesthetics of pre-existing landscapes remain, and this valuing process that picks and chooses what it wants and what it doesn't. So that was really just of interest to me, and I wanted to explore it more of this valuing process of what gets to remain and what goes, and really how almost people of color and our spaces get used as props for diversifying a new environment, because there's an appeal in a little bit of diversity. I really liken it to almost like fixing a plate of food. Like, I want certain things to stay because they're attractive to me, and then all the rest of this can go. So that's, my mind just started thinking about that, and that led me to further exploring this in the essay that I wrote.
So let's talk about that essay. It wasn't like an assignment or anything. It was just an expression that you was just trying to get out. And that essay kind of led you on to a path of not only written, but spoken and visual. Of spoken, you started a podcast interviewing people around, I'm going to say neighborhood. What have you learned from talking to others?
Yeah. So I want to also kind of speak on, I like that you brought up that it wasn't an assignment. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was really important for me to write this and kind of really sit with these changes that I was experiencing. And I'm happy that I did that, and that process really helped me further contextualize my experience of living in Durham. And also, I didn't want to just write something and walk away, which is why I wanted to start kind of a project around Curated Tolerance. So that led to the Instagram account and this podcast that is really loose. I mean, both the Instagram account and the podcast are just really me trying this out, trying to build an online community for discussing feelings around gentrification and firsthand experiences around gentrification, because a lot of people in this country and across the world are. And what I've learned through the podcast, it's really conversational style. I usually don't really set up a lot of questions with people. I just want to talk about this topic because there's so much there. And what I've learned is people just want to be heard, that's a lot of times anything related to gentrification is reduced down to numbers and percentages, and faces aren't given to these lives that are genuinely being impacted. People have stories about places that they grew up. People want to talk about how they feel, and nobody's really asking them how they feel. It's just oh, that's too bad. And yeah, so that's the motivation behind the podcast, is just, and the Instagram account as well, just giving people space to express. And sometimes I feel, even with the spaces that are available to express, there's a lot of barriers and like reliance on giving priority to people who have expertise. And that's something that I definitely wanted to eliminate with this platform that I made. Is just, I don't care who you are, what you do. If you have a story and you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. Because yeah, a lot of people aren't listening.
So I'm going to pick your brain a little bit. What drew me to you was your perspective. I was talking to someone about this and how I'm feeling conflicted about architecture. And it kind of like, is architecture a participant of gentrification? And a lot of people, I posted this question on IG, and a lot of people were like, yes, absolutely, absolutely it is. And when I talked to my fellow architects, they're like, well, it's kind of complicated. You had a parking lot there, and here's an opportunity to turn it into something else. Yes, we are changing the landscape, but it's new and it should be exciting. And so when I say those things, like, what comes to mind? Part of it is like, it's positive, right? So I'm curious, when I say these things, how do you feel about that? Like,
Yeah, I feel like three different ways. So the first one is kind of related back to what I said earlier of, I don't know how to word this yet, but it's something that's so much on my mind, of letting places be nothing. I I I'm interested in that. And one example that I'm actually going to photograph soon and post on the Curated Tolerance account. So there's this I don't even know what to call it. It's like a patch of cement that is on like this dirt field by a train track in Fayetteville. And some friends that I have that skateboard have like built that into like a makeshift skate park, basically. So that space is still being used without it, without having to build something on top of it. I guess because I grew up in a small town, I'm just interested in like, why does something that is often on my mind is like, why does every city have to be revitalized? Why does everything have to be new and updated and renovated constantly? And specifically in what things get turned into. I made a tweet about a year ago that was a joke, but partially true. And I said, in the year 2030, the entire state of North Carolina is going to be one big shopping center with a CBD store, a Walmart, and a Chinese restaurant, or no, a Food Lion and a Chinese restaurant repeating itself. Because that's like, so, you see the same things everywhere. And I think of the same thing with breweries. Like, there's, North Carolina has so many breweries, multiple breweries in one city. And I just question, is that necessary? I That's something that's constantly on my mind. Another way that I feel about that is, like, at the same time, I know people like new things and people would like to not have to drive super far to enjoy things that they like to do. But similarly, I also think of, again, like class. So with new spaces being built, how does that impact pre-existing communities? Who gets to enjoy these places? And and who do these places bring in and attract, and how does that impact pre-existing communities in that city? So those are things that I think about.
So going back to the skate park. So when you said that, a couple of things ran into my mind because obviously there's a need in that area for some type of, I guess, skate park. So I would come in, we're in the developer, architect, whatever hat, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be a skate park. So then I would make it safe because I can imagine they just grab some random things, some plywood, some, you know, very dangerous stuff that they could fall and hurt themselves. That I would legit make it a safe, probably fenced off skate park. It'll probably have some rules, most definitely, and it closes at 8 o'clock at night, something like that. How would you feel about that? I see the point of it grew organically. A couple of kids felt that there should be something here, and they decided what it was. And here I am, the adult, that's like, hey, that looks dangerous. Let me get some funds together, go to the board, whatever zoning ordinance, whatever, who can give me the rights to this property and make it into a public park. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's so funny you bring that up because there actually was a new skate park that was built in downtown Fayetteville. It's at a park actually, like a larger park, and then within that park is a skate park, and it's being used a lot, and a lot of people that skateboard here like really happy about it and love it and use it a lot. But I drive by that concrete slab pretty often, and sometimes it's still being used, and I just I like this self-determination in that. I understand that it is a safety hazard, but nobody ever really got hurt there that I know of. So I
No
don't
one
know.
died.
Yeah. No one died. That's so good. That's definitely like a southern line of thinking. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I'm not opposed to that. But do you understand where I'm coming from? Of like, there's something so great about like a community just repurposing the space.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. There's an area that I grew up and the liquor store. It's a
Yeah.
landmark and it's a dangerous intersection that Black people like to walk as slowly as they can. Don't care if the light says green or red or not.
Yeah.
You always have that. And you're just used to it.
Yeah.
You just see it. And then the city comes and they put barriers, or the liquor stores closed because either the city or the owners like, I'm selling my property, or the city's like, there's
Yeah.
too many liquor stores. Let's close
Yeah.
these down. Let's limit the amount of liquor stores. There was nothing wrong with what was there. Why change it? And it can go both ways. Here in DC, they have these things called opportunity zones. I don't know if you heard of it. So opportunity zones is basically, to me anyway, another form of redlining, where they take an area and they're like, hey, this certain area has opportunity. And so we're going to change all these existing zoning whatever and make incentives for developers to come in and make it, gentrified, I guess.
Yeah.
So, but they took a different approach. So there's an area that hasn't been touched in terms of development for decades. There was a subway system that was going, the community is like, no, we don't want a station here, mainly because they didn't want poor people who takes transit to get off there. And so they didn't want any huge like apartment complexes, no multifamily. It pretty much stayed single family zoning. So now they're like, okay, well, that's over. Like we're going to throw in some multifamily in there. And so it's a fight. It is a fight. Needless to say, this area is affluent area. And it's just a bunch of white people who don't want any suspect people in that area. So they're trying to keep it as pure as they possibly can. But then you're like, well, that's not fair, because here you go, you have the Black area, and that's totally changed. It's not fair. If why can't the same thing happen to you? So I see your point of an area that should not change as crazy and as dramatic it is. But I feel that it's changing because they deemed that area unwanted or like whatever. I don't know North Carolina, but what about the affluent areas there? How have they experienced any gentrification at all, or?
That's an interesting question. I feel like the affluent areas are created by gentrification, if that makes sense. So this like displacing and then building of new homes, larger apartment complexes. But well, something similar happened in terms of like public transit in Durham. Actually, in the Triangle area, there's also a vote for kind of like a rail system that just focuses on like Chapel Hill, Raleigh, Durham, and I think the opposite, like the actual tracks were going to go through a lot of predominantly Black neighborhoods and displacing people for this public transportation, and it didn't go through. But yeah, I mean, it seems that the affluent areas are pretty protected and have a lot of say in what goes on in their areas, and definitely, like I said, are kind of expanding through gentrification. I think so. For example, where I lived in Durham and Easter, there's definitely a lot of people being displaced there, and it's a 6-minute drive from downtown Durham. So everything is like moving east, like gentrification and all of the like revitalizing efforts are going towards East Durham because of its proximity to downtown. So that's what I mean of like this expansion that's happening. So eventually, I don't think many people can afford to live in proximity to downtown Durham.
You have a project where you want people to take photographs of areas. You want to talk more about that?
Yeah, so that's in relation to the Curated Tolerance essay, where I'm really laying out what I think, in my opinion, are the aesthetics of gentrification. And like I said, as I feel a lot of people across the country are facing similar issues, and in places that they're from or places that they're currently living, I just wanted to create that Instagram account and allow people to submit photos of examples of gentrification that they see where they live. Just, again, as a space to just have discussion, like an online community. Because again, I think we often don't get past the mic to talk about these things. It's like we're walking around downtown or something and we see something and we're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe another brewery. That's what I say. But so, just a place for people to have that type of online discussion, and also as like a mapping project. So people can be connected on this online community and kind of like compare and contrast and discuss like, wow, I'm seeing the same like tactics being used where I live. I've had submissions from places like as far as like San Diego and some in Brooklyn and in between. So that's been really great to experience. And I don't want it to be all like negative. So I also accept submissions of ways that people are resisting gentrification. And I feel like that's happening in a myriad of ways. There's a lot of like graffiti, just ways people are like visualizing their anger towards gentrification. So I also wanted that to be used or shown on the Instagram account. So people can just see like there's hope, you're not alone. Other people are feeling this way and wanting to fight back against this in some capacity. So that's another aspect of the Instagram account as well.
What about future projects? So what's the duration of it? Like, do you have an end date, and is there going to be like a final summary, or like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm still figuring that out. Yeah, I didn't really have much of a plan like long term with this project. I was just like I said, I don't just want to write something and then walk away,
Yeah.
because I felt really passionate about this. So my goal was to, yeah, just create this online community and see if it works out and see how it works out. I am planning on making a zine, which that was the plan all along, actually, but because of COVID, it's been delayed drastically because I don't have access to a printer anymore to print the zine. So I think I'm going to host it digitally, and I'm currently accepting submissions for any type of artwork or writing about gentrification, and yeah, just a space for people to express their feelings and thoughts.
Can you explain what a zine is?
Yeah, it's like a short. I wish I had like a better definition, but essentially just like a short magazine, like a miniature magazine that a lot of people kind of just can make about anything. I don't know. It's like a DIY thing.
It's like a portfolio.
Yeah, kind of.
A flip book?
I guess. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is my last question? Have you ever interacted with any architects or
No.
or thought about like architects at all, or?
Yeah. I haven't directly been in contact with architects about this topic, and I'm interested in that because I, especially with after this conversation with you, I don't want to seem like I'm pointing a finger and saying this is the problem of architects, because I don't believe that. I believe it's a larger issue of capital and local municipalities and city governments being in the pocket of developers. I don't know. I think there's like, it's such a web.
It is a web.
It's
Mm-hmm.
such a big web.
So it's a partnership.
Yes. Yeah.
And it starts off as a partnership, public-private partnership. Yeah, the 3 Ps. It really does start off that way, to get it going. So
yeah. I have read this book called The Aesthetics of Equity. I forgot the author's name, but he's a Black architect, and that's given me a lot of insight on architecture and that I didn't have previously. So I'm interested in learning more about architecture and also being in conversation with architects more, because yeah, I don't, like I said, just to reiterate, I don't think this is a single one-hand problem. And I'm also not any type of expert in architecture. I was more so writing the essay as just an observer of my environment.
And it's very important. Like your essay touched upon a lot of things that it's a perspective that I feel that architects dismiss, or we hear you and we agree with you. Yeah. So we're going to still do what we do, but use some of your language in there to justify it.
Yeah.
That's sad to say.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for like coming on and just talking to me and everything. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on. I learned a lot from this conversation, and I really.
Oh, really? I learned a lot too.
Yes, I truly appreciate you being interested in talking to me.
Yeah, I'm in a world where architects talk to other architects, and the only time we ever interact with other people is when we have to. So like in community meetings or like stuff that in order for us to get our projects through, that's the only time we talk to regular folks, even though we design for regular folks.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to stay away from architects as much as I can in my own journey, personal journey process. So
Can I ask you a question related
sure.
to that? Do you think that I don't know, is there any shift or movement working towards that in your field aside? I know that I think it's great that you're doing that individually, but is there any motive for other architects to want to do
So what I'm telling you, architects don't think that way.
that? Okay.
They're
They
not
don't
thinking and saying this what I'm saying. I'm an anomaly. I'm like, if I was to have a conversation with another architect, they'll think I'm crazy for saying this and give me a whole bunch of justifications as to why I'm wrong.
Mhm.
So yeah, so it's really a new thing that I'm doing because I'm stuck on buzzwords right now, like affordability
Yeah.
and making the community better. And like you said, what was wrong with the community before? There may
Right.
not be anything wrong with it. And it's because we believe that we are saviors or
Yeah.
our egos or what have you. People don't admit they have egos. People don't admit that they feel like they're saviors. No one thinks that way, but your actions are saying that. So no, we're doing this for the greater good.
Yeah.
And you really have to step back, and especially what's going on right now with this whole systemic racism movement.
Hmm.
It really it sheds light that architects in the past have been complacent, and then there's a whole movement of design justice about prisons and so forth. So it's kind of this whole awakening that's happening, and my part of it is we're tearing down communities to build multifamily, and you have to understand we are creating displacement. You're displacing Black and brown folks, and they don't come back most of the time to where they were.
Hmm.
And they're moving from place to place. And when you have communities and they sell their homes or they have to move out because rent taxes on your property are too high, where do you go? And
Right.
we're part of that, whether conscious or unconscious.
Right.
So it's this new thing that I'm doing. And
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that work in your field, and thank you for wanting to have these conversations.
oh, well, thank you for what you're doing and having these conversations.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's not an easy task of being an anomaly within your field, and also simultaneously being Black and like,
Being a
speaking
Black
against,
woman, yeah.
yeah, being a Black woman and speaking out against the general consensus. But so I really do sincerely appreciate your work, and thank you so much for wanting
Thank,
to talk to
thank
me.
you. Okay, so thank you again.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your week.
You too.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Hey, listeners. I have an exciting announcement. I decided to launch a membership program for the show, where you have a chance to support me and the show directly. I love creating the show, and it means the world to me that you all tune in to keep hearing me week after week. But it takes an immense amount of time and energy to produce. I want to keep the show going, and I want to invest in its growth. And I also want you to become a partner with me in this journey. That's why I'm excited to give you a chance to officially become a supporter of the show at glow.fm/archispolly, ARCHISPOLLY, or by clicking the link in the show notes. It's quick and easy. It takes less than 30 seconds and just takes clicking a link in the show notes and using Apple or Google Pay. You don't have to create any new logins, and you can contribute as much or as little as you like. If this show is part of your day or week and you like what I'm doing, then visit glow.fm/archerspoly, all one word, and support me and the show in any way you can today.